Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for qualifying for the 2024 Italian Grand Prix. Very close session at the top of the grid. Given the last couple Grand Prix that we've had, not really a surprising result in the end, but I think a bit surprising. Some surprises throughout the field. So starting Q1, of course, this was Franco Colapinto's F1 debut with Williams, his first ever F1 qualifying session. So definitely a lot of interest to see how he would fare in that first session. Definitely, as Albon said in the press interview on Thursday, if you had to pick a track to do your F1 debut on, this would be the one. Warm and sunny conditions, so no real risk of rain or anything like that. Before we even get really going, Gasly coming on the radio saying he has smoke from the front brakes, so that's a great sign right there. Sainz also has a moment, goes through the gravel, exit of the second Lesmos on his first lap, so that definitely puts him on the back foot for the rest of the session. Piastri also locks up at turn 1, so that's a lap ruin there. And after the first 5 drivers, after the first runs, the drivers in the bottom 5 were Perez, Ocon, Gasly, Zhou, and Sainz. Sainz decides to run in the gap after those first runs, and he goes third. The Alpines also had a good time running in that gap, and they were both out of the bottom 5, and those times put them 9th and 10th respectively. Piastri comes, actually it might have been Norris, well, one of the McLarens, I believe it was Piastri, comes very close to hitting Verstappen in the pit lane. That was noted, and it was going to be investigated after the session for an unsafe release. Usually in qualifying, those aren't penalties, simply because it doesn't really affect things too much, but it was pretty close, so we'll see how the stewards decide to judge that. Perez also improves, he goes up to 9th, and then Franco Colapinto, unfortunately for him, he I guess goes a little bit too aggressive, and he has a bit of a moment through the gravel, a bit bigger than Sainz, and that was at the second Lesmo as well. That kind of sprayed gravel over the track, and Magnussen, who is I believe the first driver after Colapinto, he drives through that, and then he just starts slowing down at Parabolica, which brings out the yellow flags. Of course, if there's yellow flags, you have to slow down, and it's basically impossible in dry conditions to improve your lap when that happens. So it really screwed over Stroll, and also screwed over the 2 Saubers as well, who were forced to slow down. So because of that, 5 drivers who were knocked out at the end of Q1: Tsunoda, Stroll, Colapinto, Bottas, and Zhou. For Tsunoda, I guess just a bit unlucky with the timing as well of that, and Norris was fastest in Q1. Q2, the session was delayed to sweep some gravel, so I took the opportunity to go and knock down a wasp nest on my patio. So yeah, that was fun. Managed to get it done. There were no wasps, so it seems like it's been there for a while. But when I got back in the important stuff, the first runs, Alonso, Magnussen, Gasly, Ocon, and Ricciardo were your bottom 5. Hamilton was fastest. As if the wasp nest was not enough, the F1 gods had decided that perhaps they didn't want me to review this session at all, as I got a bloody nose for absolutely no reason, so I had to manage that while also writing notes at the same time. But luckily all of the marker for today's video was in red, so if there was any blood on the board, you wouldn't notice anyway. Let's see, so the top 7 within 3.5 tenths of a second, so very close with those top 4 teams. Alonso then misses Q3 by 0.01 seconds, so very close, but over the radio he did seem fairly content with his lap. Hulkenberg also went fastest on his final run in Sector 1, so a surprise turn of speed in the Haas car on a sector that's basically just a straight in one braking zone. Alonso, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Gasly, Ocon were all out in Q2, while Hamilton set the fastest time in the middle session. Into Q3 we go. Sainz was noted for an unsafe release in front of, again, none other than Verstappen. Seems like teams really enjoyed doing unsafe releases in front of Verstappen. It's probably just a coincidence, but you never know. Norris sets the benchmark on the 1:19.401 on his first lap. Piastri was second, 3/100ths behind him. Russell third, 0.168 behind. Verstappen, really scruffy first lap. He was in 8th behind Perez, and he was 6.5 tenths down on Norris. He had a snap of oversteer at the Parabolica, which definitely would have lost you quite a bit of time. Not sure if it's 6.5 tenths worse, but he was definitely a driver who was looking to, improve and kind of be where he had been through Q1, Q2, which was generally in the top 4 or 5 places. Verstappen was up on Norris's time in Sector 1, but was down in Sector 2 as there was a cloud of gravel at Lesmo 2. I don't know if that was how much that would have affected his time, but he went from being slightly up, about 800ths up, to being about a tenth and a half, 2 tenths down on Norris. And it would turn out that it would actually be Perez, who was the driver in front, who probably caused that gravel shower. So not great there from Red Bull. And everyone's times were very slow. No one was really improving by absolutely massive margins, if at all. Norris, so Verstappen, let's see where, so Verstappen ends up only 7th. So big surprise there. Definitely a really poor qualifying session from the Red Bulls. Norris improves his time, but only by 7.5 hundredths of a second. Sainz and Leclerc also move up the order to 4th and 3rd respectively, but the two Mercedes, the last drivers on track. Russell has a really good lap, and he moves back up into 3rd place. And that confirms Norris with his 2nd straight pole position and a Piastri P2. So again, another front row lockout for McLaren. That pole time of 1:19.327. So pretty interesting grid for tomorrow. So you have a Norris, Piastri front row, so all McLaren front row. And given how things have gone with Norris and starting on pole position recently, I honestly half expect him to lose that position to Piastri off the line. 3rd on the grid, Russell, I think really good session from him with Leclerc 4th. It'll be interesting to see what Ferrari can do at their home Grand Prix. Sainz 5th as well. And then you have Hamilton 6th, 7th, Verstappen 8th, Perez. Verstappen, very small margin between himself and Perez. For whatever reason, just couldn't maximize the lap time in Q3. So I guess, something he'll definitely be regretting. And then 9th, Albon, best of the best. And then 10th, Hulkenberg, 11th, Alonso, 12th, Ricciardo, 13th, Magnussen, 14th, Gasly, 15th, Ocon, 16th, Tsunoda, 17th, Stroll, 18th, Colapinto, 19th, Bottas, and 20th, Zhou. So you have a McLaren front row just on the top half for one end, and the other end is bookended by a Sauber 1920. In terms of how things change, I guess in terms of predictions for tomorrow's Grand Prix, I don't think Verstappen's going to get on the podium unless some wild strategy or some massive crash happens, just because I don't think on race pace they're going to be strong enough to be able to make up those positions on the cars in front. Sorry about that. I think really it's just going to be between Norris and Piastri, whoever gets out in the lead at that first stint, and then similar situation to Hungary, where basically whoever's in the lead will basically get preferential strategy. And that's kind of how I see the Grand Prix going. Last place on the podium, I think Russell has a good shot, assuming he doesn't get his strategy completely destroyed like it did last time out in Zandvoort. And again, for points, I think you can have a scrap between Albon, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Ricciardo for those final points positions. Anyway, fairly interesting grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.